The moment I told my wife we were broke, I saw something in her eyes I had never seen before. Not fear, not worry, not even surprise. It was something colder, something calculating. And in that exact moment, I realized the woman I had loved for 8 years might never have loved me at all. But what she did next, that changed everything. Before we begin, I want to ask you something real quick. Where are you watching this story from today? Drop your country or city in the comments. I always love seeing how far these stories travel around the world. And if you enjoy powerful stories about betrayal, revenge, and shocking twists, make sure you subscribe to Crown Tales. You don't want to miss the next story, because some of them will leave you speechless. Now, let me tell you what happened to me. My name is Daniel Hayes, and until that night, I believed I had the perfect life. I was 36 years old, the founder of a fast-growing logistics company based in Chicago. 8 years earlier, I started the company in a tiny rented office with nothing but 2 laptops and a borrowed desk. By the time I turned 35, my company had contracts across 3 states, warehouses, delivery fleets, investors calling every week. On paper, I was worth a little over $40 million, but almost nobody knew that. Not my neighbors, not my employees, and most importantly, not even my wife. You see, when I met Lena, I was still struggling. Back then, I drove an old gray Honda with a broken air conditioner and worked 16 hours a day trying to keep the company alive. Lena was working as a marketing assistant at a small design firm. She was funny, charming, confident, the kind of woman who could walk into any room and immediately become the center of attention. The night we met was at a friend's birthday party. I still remember her laugh cutting through the loud music. She had this way of talking that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. Within 3 months, we were inseparable. Within a year, we were married. Those first few years were hard. There were nights when I barely slept, constantly worried about payroll and contracts falling through. Lena would bring me coffee at my desk and rub my shoulders while I worked. At least, that's what I believed. But success changes things. 3 years ago, my company exploded. One massive government logistics contract changed everything. Suddenly, we were expanding faster than I had ever imagined. Money started pouring in, but I made a decision that most people thought was strange. I never told Lena how much the company was really making, not because I didn't trust her, at least not at first. I just wanted to keep life simple. We still lived in the same comfortable house in the suburbs. I still drove normal cars. I still told people my business was doing okay. Lena believed our lifestyle came from careful budgeting and a stable middle-class income. And for years, everything seemed normal. But slowly, small things started to change. At first, it was subtle. Lena started spending more time out with friends, girls' nights that stretched later and later. Then came the shopping, designer handbags, expensive jewelry, new clothes almost every week. When I asked about it, she laughed and said her marketing job had given her a bonus. But something about the way she said it felt rehearsed. Then came the phone. She started guarding it like a secret, taking calls in another room, turning the screen away when messages appeared. At night, sometimes I'd wake up and notice the glow of her phone lighting up her face as she typed quietly beside me. Every time I asked who she was talking to, the answer was always the same. Just work. Maybe I should have confronted her earlier. Maybe I should have asked more questions. But when you love someone, you sometimes choose the explanation that hurts the least. So instead, I watched. I paid attention. And eventually, I decided to run a test, not to trap her, not to accuse her, just to see who she really was. The plan came to me during a meeting with my financial advisor. He was explaining a tax restructuring strategy, showing charts about moving assets through different holding companies. And suddenly, an idea formed in my mind. What if Lena believed everything was gone? What if she believed we had lost all the money? Would she stand by me, or would she run? I didn't tell anyone about my plan. Not my lawyer, not my assistant, not even my best friend Marcus. 2 weeks later, on a quiet Tuesday evening, I came home earlier than usual. Lena was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone while sipping a glass of wine. She barely looked up when I walked in. "Hey," she said casually. I took a deep breath. This was the moment. "Lena, we need to talk." She frowned slightly. "What about?" I sat across from her at the kitchen table. I made sure my voice sounded tired, defeated. "The company lost a major contract today," I said. She stared at me. "And?" "It wasn't just the contract." I paused, rubbing my temples. "There were debts tied to it, loans I took to expand the fleet. The investors pulled out." Her face slowly lost color. "So what are you saying?" I swallowed hard. "I'm saying everything is gone." The room went completely silent. For a moment, Lena didn't move. Then she leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. And that's when I saw it. Not panic, not sadness, annoyance. "You're joking, right?" she said flatly. I wish I was. She stared at me for a long time, longer than someone normally would when hearing life-changing news. And then she said something that made my stomach drop. "Well, that's just great." No sympathy, no concern, just irritation. I tried to keep my voice steady. "I know this is a shock." "A shock," she snapped. "Daniel, do you have any idea what you're saying right now?" "I'm saying we'll have to adjust. Sell the house, maybe. Downsize until I rebuild things." Her chair scraped loudly against the floor as she stood up. "You ruined everything." Those words hit me like a punch. "I'm working on fixing it," I said quietly. But Lena was already pacing the kitchen. "You promised me stability," she said angrily. "You said your business was safe." "I thought it was." She laughed bitterly. "This is unbelievable." Then she grabbed her phone. "I need air." Before I could respond, she walked out the front door. I waited. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. I stepped outside. Her car was gone. Something in my chest tightened. So I did something I had never done before in our entire marriage. I checked our home security app. Our driveway camera had recorded her leaving. But that wasn't the part that made my blood run cold. It was the next notification. 20 minutes after leaving the house, Lena had pulled into the parking lot of a luxury apartment building downtown. And she wasn't alone, because the camera across the street captured something else. A man walking out to meet her. He hugged her, kissed her, and then they walked inside together. I stared at the screen. my heart pounding in my ears. The man looked familiar, too familiar. Then it hit me. My breath caught in my throat because the man kissing my wife was my business partner, Marcus, my best friend of 15 years. And that's when my phone buzzed. A text from Lena. 3 words. Don't wait up. But what she didn't know was that I had already seen everything. And what I discovered next about their secret plan was far worse than the betrayal itself. I stared at my phone screen for a long time after Lena's message appeared. Don't wait up. 3 simple words. But now I knew exactly where she was and who she was with. My chest felt tight, like the air had suddenly disappeared from the room. Marcus, out of all the people in the world. Marcus, the man who had helped me build my company from the ground up. The man who had stood beside me at my wedding. The man I trusted enough to give 30% ownership of my business. And now he was kissing my wife. For a moment, anger rushed through me like fire. I wanted to drive to that apartment building immediately, kick the door down, confront them both. But then something else took over, something colder, something calmer. I put my phone down and sat quietly in the dark living room, because suddenly everything started making sense. The late nights, the secret phone calls, the expensive shopping, even the strange comments Marcus had made during meetings over the past few months, things I had brushed off before. Now they felt different, calculated, planned. And the more I thought about it, the more one terrifying possibility formed in my mind. What if this wasn't just an affair? What if it was something bigger? That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I opened my laptop and started digging. Marcus and I shared access to most company files, but I had full administrative control over everything. At first, I checked the financial reports. Nothing unusual. Then I checked internal emails. Still nothing. But around 2 in the morning, I found something strange. A draft contract Marcus had created but never sent through the official system. It was saved in a private folder. When I opened it, my heart started pounding. It was a transfer agreement. 30% of the company's shares, Marcus's shares, were being quietly sold to a private investment firm. The sale price? $200 million. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was the timing. The contract was scheduled to activate the moment the company's value dropped below a certain threshold. In other words, if my company suddenly appeared to be failing, Marcus could sell his shares quickly before anyone realized what was happening. I leaned back in my chair, stunned. That's when the final piece clicked into place. My financial collapse. Marcus didn't know it was fake, which meant, right now, he probably believed the company was about to crumble. And if that happened, his shares would be worth almost nothing, unless he moved quickly, unless he had already planned to move quickly. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Lena. This time it said, "Daniel, we need to talk tomorrow." Of course we do, I thought, but not for the reason she believed. The next morning, Lena returned home around 10. She walked in looking tired but composed, like someone rehearsing a difficult conversation. I was sitting at the kitchen table drinking coffee. She froze when she saw me. "You're still here?" she said. I took the day off. She slowly walked over and sat across from me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she sighed dramatically. "Daniel, I've been thinking all night." I figured. She folded her hands together. "I don't think this marriage is working anymore." There it was, just like that. 8 years of marriage, reduced to a sentence. I kept my expression neutral. "You're leaving because of the money?" Her eyes flashed with irritation. "That's not fair." "Then explain it." She leaned back. "You've been distant for years, always working, always stressed. I feel like I don't even know you anymore." Interesting. So now I was the problem. "I see," I said quietly. She hesitated before speaking again. "I think we should separate." "Separate?" "Yes." "And where exactly would you go?" She paused. Then she said the words that confirmed everything. "I'll figure something out." But I already knew where she would go. Marcus's apartment. What she didn't know was that Marcus had just walked into the biggest trap of his life. Later that afternoon, I called an emergency meeting with our company board. Marcus arrived, looking nervous. I could see it in his eyes the moment he walked into the conference room. Good. He had heard about the supposed financial disaster. "Daniel," he said quietly, pulling me aside. "What the hell is going on?" I gave him the same tired expression I had given Lena. "We lost the government contract." His face went pale. That's impossible." "I wish it was." He ran a hand through his hair, clearly panicking. "Do the investors know?" "Not yet." That answer seemed to calm him slightly, which told me everything I needed to know. Marcus wasn't worried about saving the company. He was worried about escaping before it collapsed. The meeting started. Board members asked questions. I repeated the same story. Revenue collapse, debt exposure, potential bankruptcy. Marcus stayed unusually quiet the entire time. But I noticed something interesting. He kept checking his phone under the table. Finally, near the end of the meeting, he cleared his throat. "Daniel, maybe we should consider selling part of the company quickly. Bring in outside capital before things get worse." Exactly as I expected. I nodded slowly. "That might be necessary." Marcus leaned forward. "I actually know an investment firm that could move very fast." "Of course you do." I folded my hands on the table. "Well," I said calmly, "before we make any decisions, there's something I should clarify." The room went silent. Marcus looked confused. "What do you mean?" I clicked a button on the screen behind me. A new financial report appeared. Projected revenue, new contracts, profit growth. The numbers were massive and very real. Marcus stared at the screen. What is this?" I smiled slightly. "This is the actual financial report." The entire board turned toward me in confusion. "Daniel?" one member said. "I thought you said." I lied. Marcus's face went completely white. "I needed to run a test," I continued calmly. "A test?" "Yes." I looked directly at Marcus, and it worked. His voice trembled. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were printed copies of the secret share transfer contract he had drafted. Marcus's hands started shaking as he flipped through the pages. "How did you—" "You saved it on the company server." The room erupted with shocked murmurs. Marcus stood up suddenly. "This is taken out of context." "Is it?" I asked. Then I placed another photo on the table. A still image from the security camera. Lena and Marcus kissing outside the apartment building. Marcus froze. Every board member leaned forward in disbelief. "You see," I said quietly, "when I told my wife we were broke, she ran straight to my business partner, Silence filled the room. Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came out. "So let me explain what happens next," I continued. "Effective immediately, Marcus's shares are frozen, pending a full legal investigation for attempted corporate fraud." Marcus's chair scraped loudly as he stood up. "You can't do that." "Oh, I can," I said calmly, and I already did. Two security officers walked into the room. Marcus looked around desperately. "Daniel, listen, we can fix this." I shook my head. "No, Marcus, you already made your choice." As the officers escorted him out, he shouted one last thing. "Lena will never forgive you for this." But that's when I smiled, because Lena had no idea what had just happened. That evening, when she came home, ready to finalize our divorce, she walked into the living room and found me sitting there calmly. And the first thing she said was, "So, have you figured out how we're splitting what's left?" I looked up at her slowly and said 5 words that made the color drain from her face. Marcus was arrested today. Her wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. "What?" I stood up. "And now it's your turn to explain everything." She stared at me in pure panic. For the first time since this nightmare began, I finally saw the truth in her eyes. Fear, real fear. And in that moment, I realized something important. The test I had run on my wife didn't just reveal betrayal. It revealed who she truly was when everything she wanted disappeared. Because love built on money will always collapse when the money is gone. But character is what remains when nothing else does. Lena opened her mouth, trying to speak, but no lie came out fast enough. And as she stood there trembling, she finally understood something. She hadn't just lost Marcus. She hadn't just lost the marriage. She had just lost the one life she thought she had secured forever. And the worst part? The money she thought was gone had never been safer, because the man she betrayed still owned every single piece of it. And that night, as Lena packed her bags in silence, I learned the most powerful lesson of my life. Never test someone expecting the result you want. Test them to see the truth you need